Welcome to Soliloquies Monthly Art Quilt Wall Hanging. This month in February, we are doing Trapunto heart balloons. In this method, a design is created on the front side of the quilt. It can be marked, or applique can be used to create a shape. If it's just marked, then you'll need to add an additional layer of fabric on the back, because this method does use 2 layers of fabric. Flip the fabric over, and then using small sharp scissors or even a seam ripper, make a small hole in just the back fabric, not your front design fabric, just the back fabric. Make a small hole in that back layer. Then take some stuffing and push stuffing into that hole until the right amount of puffiness is achieved with this stylus. This is kind of a neat tool. It's an Alex Anderson 4-in-1 tool, and it's very handy. So put the stuffing through the hole and then get all that stuffing pushed in there until you're confident that the puffiness is exactly what you want on the front side. So once you get your stuffing pushed into the hole, you're going to want to flip it over and then see if that is what you want. So it takes a little bit of pushing around and adjusting, but this is the traditional hand trapunto technique. So once the shapes have all of the stuffing in them, then what you can do is just hand stitch those holes closed. I'm using contrasting thread. I would probably normally use a matching color thread, but for the purposes of this, I'm showing the hand sewing with a contrasting thread. So a newer method, and some might say an easier method, is to create the design or shape on the front side of the quilt and then use a small quilt sandwich. So I've got a layer of backing, I've got a layer of batting, and then I'm going to put the front of the quilt on top of that, and then stitch around the outside of the shape. So I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and then just stitch around this shape. So after quilting around the shape, flip the quilt over to the back and then cut out this excess batting and then trim around the backing. So you're going to want to cut the batting very close to the edge of the shape, the edge of the design. So I'm using some very small, sharp scissors, and I'm making sure that I don't cut through the front side of the quilt. So I'm just trimming around that shape, removing all of the batting from around the outside where I've quilted. And then what I'm going to end up with is some puffiness to that, so that when I add another quilt sandwich for my entire art quilt, so I'm going to have another layer of full batting and backing and then quilt around that. This will have a little bit more puffiness, so you can see it puff up a little bit more. Another method is to create a shape by sewing 2 fabrics right side together, leaving a space to turn. Much like making a pillow. So trim the corners before you turn it, turn the shape right side out, and then fill the shape with stuffing. So you're making a little pillow. in that shape. Then apply that stuffed shape to the front side of the quilt, applying like an applique and stitching around the edges by hand or with a machine.
These art quilt wall hangings are fun and easy to create. February's uses Trapunto Techniques for cute floating and puffy heart balloons. Be sure to subscribe for next month's art quilt wall hanging from Sewliloquies.